What if Leia time traveled to meet Anakin Skywalker? Let's start the story after Return of the Jedi. Leia was deep in her Jedi training as Luke had taught her everything he'd learned from Obi-Wan and Yoda. She was deep in meditating, attempting to connect to the Force stronger than ever before. But her mind was often shaken by outside thoughts. This time she was focused on her father. She struggled with Vader being her father. She was horrified and even disgusted with the fact that she was related to Vader. She hated him. Luke had seemed to have forgiven Vader after he returned to the light, but this wasn't something Leia could do. Vader wasn't even her father in her mind, yet many in the galaxy called her the daughter of Vader and not the hero of the rebellion. Bail was her father in her mind. But this got her wondering, what if Anakin never turned to the dark side? What if she was raised by Anakin, the strongest Jedi of all time, and her mother Padme, the fierce and beautiful senator of Naboo? She was to see Anakin from when he was a Jedi, and whilst Leia was in deep meditating, the Force decided to answer her calls. The currents of the Force swirled around her and captured Leia in the future and sent her back in time to the very end of the Clone War as she appeared right in the center of the Jedi Council chamber. Leia opened her eyes and there she was, in the past, surrounded by the 12 strongest Jedi of the Republic era. She looked around at the Jedi. She's read and heard stories from Luke. First she makes eye contact with Kenobi and thinks back to the time she spent with him as a kid and the effect he had on her life. Next Yoda, whom she'd never met but recognized him instantly from Luke's descriptions. And then finally, Anakin Skywalker, her father. She recognized Anakin from his Force ghost who attempted to visit her a few years after his death, but Leia refused to talk to him and ushered for him to leave. She couldn't keep her eyes off Anakin until the raised voice of Jedi Master Windu pulled her away. He was standing now, demanding that she tell him how she appeared in front of them. But she didn't know. She tells them she was meditating deep in the Force, and when she opened her eyes, she was there. She didn't want to tell them she was from the future, as that would only confuse them. The council could sense she was a Jedi and strong in the Force, but none of them really recognized her. But of course every member on the council thought that at least someone else would recognize her, but none of them did. Leia simply bowed, and she said she had to get back to her meditating and rushed out of the chamber. Leia started walking the halls of the Jedi Temple and couldn't really believe she was in the past. She starts to wonder, why would the Force have sent her here? Did she have a greater purpose? She thinks back on the council meeting. Her father was there, but from what she'd heard from Luke and Obi-Wan was that Anakin was only on the Jedi Council for a couple of days before Order 66. Could she have been sent back in time to the last days of the Clone War? She knew this couldn't be a coincidence, and now had the opportunity to change the past. She decides her first stop will be the Senate offices. She steals some Jedi robes and travels across Coruscant, the layout being the same from her time. Leia walked fairly cluelessly around the Senate offices. She turned a corner sharply and bumped into someone else, causing her to drop her papers. Without looking at her, Leia hurried to the ground to pick them up, and then when she went to give them back, she made eye contact with the person and realized who it was instantly. Senator Padme Amidala, her mother. Leia was shocked. She had seen photos of her mother, dreamed about what she was really like, and now here she was, in front of her. Padme apologized for being so clumsy and excuses herself. Leia notices that Padme was pregnant. Could that be related to Anakin's fall, she thinks. Could Padme's pregnancy be why Anakin turned to the dark side? It cannot be a coincidence. She never thought to ask Luke about the details of Anakin's turn. It didn't matter to her what made Darth Vader, as it would have justified the things that Vader had done. But maybe now, Leia was starting to understand it was more complicated than that. Leia follows Padme all the way home and decides to spy on her parents. She sees Padme enter, embrace Anakin deeply, kiss and spend the evening together. She saw the love firsthand. These two people were soulmates and made for each other. Leia started to realize that maybe it was the fear of losing Padme and ultimately his children that drove her father to the dark side. She had seen how much he loves her and realizes how vulnerable this side of Anakin makes him. Through this, Leia starts to understand that Anakin fell to the dark side and it was more complicated than she'd realized. The next morning, Leia decides to visit their home. Padme answers the door, recognizing Leia as the Jedi whom she'd seen yesterday. She exchanges pleasantries, Padme attempting to distract Leia, but she realized what she was doing, and Leia told Padme she knows Anakin Skywalker is here, and it's best to stop hiding it. Padme was slightly flustered at the comment and went red, and Leia walked in to see Anakin hiding inside. Anakin tells Leia it's not what it looks like, but Leia told Anakin that he doesn't need to say anything, she already knows the truth, that Anakin and Padme are married. Anakin asks how she knows this, and Leia has to lie, telling Anakin that the Force spoke to her in a deep meditation, telling her that Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, was in danger. Anakin asks Leia if she'll go to the council, but of course Leia tells Anakin she won't, that the Force has tasked her to help him solve his problems. Anakin thought about this, thinking that maybe Leia would actually help, that the Force had sent her here for a reason, that she held some unique power that could help him save Padme. Leia asks Anakin again what's bothering him, and they sit down together, but Leia was not ready for the answer. Anakin told her everything, Padme's pregnancy and his nightmares of her dying in childbirth. Leia froze and she couldn't believe it. She always thought Vader, her father, was an evil man. But could it be true? Could her father have turned to the dark side out of love? Anakin asks Leia what she thinks he could do, and Leia tells Anakin the Force will reveal the answers in time. But for now, he must focus on his heart, to not let his fear take over, so that together they can save his wife. But for Leia, she will be saving her mum. The next day, whilst Anakin carries out his Jedi duties, Leia spends more time with Padme, even helping her with some senatorial work. They grow close quickly, almost like mother and daughter without Padme realizing the truth. Padme confides in Leia her fears for Anakin, that ever since the nightmares came on, he's been different, and she tells Leia the story of Anakin's mother and his nightmares surrounding her. Leia now understands why Anakin is so fearful, that history will repeat itself and he'll be left alone again with no family, and finally, she started to sympathize. They return home that night to find Anakin there pacing. He tells Leia that he might have found a solution to Padme, and tells Leia the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise, the Sith Lord who could save those from death with the dark side. Leia asks who he learnt this from, and of course, Anakin told her Palpatine. Leia pauses. This is Palpatine's manipulation. She knew he must be behind Anakin's nightmares or connected to them somehow. She tells Anakin that the dark side cannot be the answer, that the dark side doesn't give, it only takes. For every life you think you can save, it will take something from you until none of you is left. And Leia tells Anakin that she fears if he gives in to the dark side to save Padme, he might lose himself in the process. Padme clings to Anakin and tells him he cannot do this. She'd rather be dead than lose Anakin. And of course he tells Padme that he won't do it, but Leia can sense he doesn't really mean this, that he would indeed do anything to save Padme. This helped Leia realize how strong Palpatine's hooks were even on Anakin. Darth Sidious, perhaps the greatest manipulator the galaxy has ever seen, has had his sights set on Anakin for over 10 years. No wonder he turned to the dark side. The next day was when it all changed. Leia was with Padme, but felt a disturbance in the Force and decided to return to the Jedi Temple. And luckily she did. Just moments before, Palpatine revealed himself as Darth Sidious to Anakin, and that he alone had the power to save Padme, and that if he didn't join him, she would surely die. Anakin runs into Leia around the entrance of the temple in a panic, and instead of going to Mace Windu to tell him the truth, he went to Leia and told her everything. That Palpatine was the Sith Lord, but also that he was the only one with the power to save Padme. Anakin had his hands on his head, telling Leia that he doesn't know what to do. Leia can sense the conflict within Anakin, and knows the critical moment is upon them. Either Anakin turns now, and the galaxy is subdued to decades of empire, or she saves her father, and they defeat the Sith together. Anakin turns his back to Leia, telling her that he has no choice but to join Sidious, that he has to save Padme no matter what it takes. But Leia grabs Anakin before it's too late, telling him she knows what he's about to do, but that she knows what Sidious will make of him. He will not be able to save him. His promises are filled with lies. She knows this because she's lived her entire life in the shadow of her father. Anakin Skywalker, who turned to the dark side and became Darth Vader. Leia decided to reveal everything now, and Anakin's eyes went wide. He asked Leia for clarification. She cannot really be his daughter, that's impossible. Time travel isn't real. But Leia presses on, telling Anakin he turns because he couldn't let go of his fear. He thinks that he's saving Padme, but he'll destroy her and everything. The Jedi, the Republic, and even himself, and he'll leave her and her brother to grow up in the wreckage of his choice. This cuts Anakin to his greatest fear, losing not only Padme but also his family. Anakin knew when he first laid eyes on Leia that he recognized something familiar, but little did he know at the time it was because she was his daughter. He and Padme had always planned on calling their first daughter Leia, but he never believed she'd be standing in front of him like this. Leia grabbed her father by his face and begs him not to go, that to do so will destroy their family. She pleads for him to trust in the Force and the Jedi, to seek help from the Council, and together they can confront Palpatine. Anakin's mind wavered, the fear in his mind crept up at him, but it was drowned out by the determined voice of his daughter standing in front of him. Together they go to Mace Windu and tell him the truth. Windu couldn't believe it, asking Anakin if he was sure, and he was positive. In the original timeline, Windu didn't let Anakin join them because he sensed the conflict in him. However, in this timeline, Anakin's resolve was strong. With Leia by his side, he would not turn to the dark side. So Anakin and Leia joined Windu and the three masters to confront Palpatine. Windu led them, declaring that Palpatine was under arrest. The Sith turned to Anakin, looking for support, but Anakin declared that he would pay for his crimes. Palpatine didn't like this, and sent Sith lightning flurrying at the Jedi. But he cancelled it just as fast, and was upon them with his lightsaber, cutting down Agen Kola and Saesee Tin in seconds. But the rest of them jumped on Palpatine. They didn't give the Sith Lord a chance to rest, constantly attacking him with all of their strikes, so that he was forced on the back foot. There were a couple of close calls, but Palpatine was growing frustrated. He overreached as Windu took advantage, his Vapod only rising as the fight went on, and removed Palpatine's hands from his wrist. He dropped his saber and went to send Sith lightning, but Fisto grabbed his arm and put him in a lock as Anakin drove his blade through Palpatine's chest, defeating the Sith once and for all. With this, they returned to the Jedi Council chamber to relay the news to the rest of the Council. They couldn't believe it. Palpatine was the Sith Lord, but were relieved they had defeated him. However, Windu stood, declaring they couldn't have defeated Palpatine without Anakin's help, and said that he was wrong not to trust him, and stated that he believes Anakin fulfilled his role as the Chosen One, and has earned the rank of Master. No one on the Council objected, and Anakin was knighted as a Master of the Order. Over the following days, there was some political unrest as the Jedi were forced to take control of the Senate, but passed over democracy as the next election was held, with Bail Organa being elected as the new Chancellor of the Republic. With Dooku, Palpatine, and Grievous's defeat, the Republic had won the Clone War, and this was celebrated around the galaxy. But something just as significant happened during this time. Padme entered labor, and the time of her birth had come. She gave birth, with Leia and Obi-Wan there, whom they had also revealed the truth to. But Anakin was confident that his choice to stay in the light would be rewarded, and he was right. Padme gave birth successfully to babies Luke and Leia, and the Skywalker family had begun. Days later, Anakin went back to the Jedi Council and told them about his family. He knew they would eventually find out, and decided it would be best for him to take some time away from the Order. Most of the Council agreed with this, as Anakin has gone against the Jedi Code, but Obi-Wan tried to argue that Anakin was a Master and the Chosen One, and perhaps this showed some inaccuracies with the Jedi Code rather than Anakin's actions, and that he should be allowed to stay. But this didn't have a lot of support. With this, Anakin and Padme moved to Naboo, to the Lake House, and set up a shared nursery they had always dreamed of. Together they raised Luke and Leia, sharing the jobs equally between them. They were stress-free. No Republic, no Jedi, no politics, and no war. They could focus solely on themselves and their family. Leia joined them on Naboo one night. She and Anakin were on the balcony. Anakin asked to hear about Vader, and she reluctantly told him the truth. Vader's 20-year reign as the Emperor's enforcer, the inhumane and monstrous attacks he had done, but also how he stood by and did nothing as Tarkin destroyed Alderaan with the Death Star. Silence followed the conversation until Anakin broke it, thanking Leia for everything, that the Force had sent her back with a purpose, and he was so proud she had fulfilled it, and that he wouldn't have resisted the dark side without her help. They embraced tightly, and through this experience, Leia's hatred towards Vader had shifted. She realized he wasn't born evil, and fell through fear, that ultimately, Vader was a different man than Anakin, and Vader was what Anakin had become when fear consumed him, and he cannot be entirely to blame. That Palpatine's influence ran deep, and anyone would have failed to break from it. They separated from their hug, and Anakin tells Leia that her time in the past is over, that the moment has come when she must go back to her time. Leia closes her eyes and feels the Force flow through her deeply. The currents of space and time consume her as she opens her eyes to see she's atop a forestry mountain in the center of a stone monument. She senses a familiar presence behind her and turns to see the face she recognizes, only older, her father, Anakin. He calls out to her, asking if her journey was successful, but she turns her head in confusion. What time had she returned to? This can't be her original timeline, where Anakin had become Vader and died on the Death Star, but rather, she returned to the timeline that she had just created by saving her father Anakin from becoming Darth Vader. A 50-year-old Anakin walked up towards her and touched the center of her forehead with his index finger as all the memories of this timeline came flooding back to her. Memories of her childhood and her twin Luke and her other 3 siblings. The adventures they all went on together, serving the people of the galaxy, defeating the returned Sith Empire and assisting the Jedi Order. Anakin asked if she was ready, and she knew what he was talking about. Her memories had shown her that the galaxy faced a new threat. The Yuzong Vong and the Skywalker family would lead the Republic into battle once again against the forces of evil. Hey guys, over at Fantasy Sabers, for the entire month of September, we are giving away a free Xenopixel plastic saber with every order. Xenopixel sabers offer movie-accurate sound, smooth swing effects, and customizable coloring, making now the perfect time to grab a free saber for an unbeatable Star Wars experience. Thank you all for watching today's video. Please check out Fantasy Sabers for the most affordable and perfect sabers on the market. Also check out our membership program if you would like access to our videos early. Thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you.